Time keeps on tripping, slipping, dipping, altering the future. Well, not if the Time Variance Authority has anything to do with it, but they might be outmatched. Thanks to the magic of an informational orientation video, we know that the Marvel Cinematic Universe was once a massive multiverse with multiple realities clashing and colliding and threatening the very existence of reality. Fortunately, we have a pretty good picture of what that would look like, because in the pages of Marvel Comics, different realities can't keep their hands off each other. Oh, get a room. Does the TVA have a point here? Let's find out. It's not super clear what exactly Miss Minutes is, aside from mascot and easy exposition device, but she has quickly brought Loki and the rest of us up to date on the mission of the TVA, or at least the mission that the TVA would like people to think they have. Taken at face value, the TVA is there to create the sacred timeline. This sacred timeline, of course, is to prevent the madness that goes with unchecked multiverses. Madness, you say? Multiverses, you say? No idea where that's heading. Doctor Strange's multiverse shenanigans, and Spider-Man's, for that matter, aren't the only thing that the Time Variance Authority have to worry about. There's some pretty big reality-altering events that the TVA would want to avoid. Perhaps the most immediate comparison, and the one that everyone is guessing where all this multiverse madness is ultimately heading, is Secret Wars. The Secret Wars that the TVA hints at is the 2015 event, where someone got the big idea to bring Dr. Doom to confront the Beyonders, being so powerful that they each contain an entire reality. Ooh. Dr. Doom never met a power that he didn't want for his own, and sure enough, he got in on some of that Beyonder power, ripping apart various parts of the multiverse and jamming them all together. Chiefly the Marvel Ultimates Universe 1610 that was fighting with the main timeline 616 to eventually form the Prime Universe. It's not clear if this is what happened or what will happen, because causality and time are all pretty strange in the null time zone. Another big reality-ripping event that occurred in the comics that fans are anticipating for the MCU is the House of M event. The brief description is that Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, started to have a harder and harder time coming to grips with her imaginary children and her power spiraling out of control. When she found out that this was disturbing people, she thought she'd make everyone happy by completely rewriting reality, several times in a row. A House of M level event could bring the mutants home for the MCU, and Scarlet Witch has already done a trial run on reality bending by turning Westview, New Jersey into a living sitcom. The Eternity War is presumably what can happen if the TVA isn't around to straighten things out. The end result of 2015's Secret Wars saw Reed Richards and his mega-powerful son hurling new realities back into existence with the Beyonder power they took from Dr. Doom. That event marked the end of the 7th iteration of the multiverse and gave birth to the 8th. The first firmament, the embodiment of the universe, decided to put an end to this multiverse madness by attacking its replacement, Eternity, the living embodiment of the multiverse. It's living entity against living entity in an all-star throwdown, mostly involving the Ultimates that were supposed to have been blinked out in the Secret Wars. If there's any consequence that the TVA would like to avoid, it's the living embodiment of the first taking matters into its own hands. The laws of the current universe require that we mention Thanos at least once. Thanos already did his thing in the MCU, snapping out half the people and then getting killed for it twice. But we all know that death is a passing inconvenience in comic books unless you're the uncle to someone with spider powers. The Infinity conflict stemmed from Adam Warlock's big idea to give Thanos the Reality Stone to, get this, protect reality. Wanna guess how that turned out? Yeah, good idea, Adam. Yeah, okay, so it turns out though, the answer to this Thanos problem might have been Thanos. Incursions aren't a singular event, but rather the name of the exact thing that the TVA is trying to avoid. Think of them as a prelude to Secret Wars. An incursion is what occurs when one reality runs into another. The catch is the point of contact is that reality's Earth. Once it starts, both realities have about 8 hours to get their affairs in order before the Earths collide and both realities collapse. Unless one Earth can destroy the other. With only 8 hours to decide, there usually isn't a lot of deliberation. There's a whole lot of Loki in the lives of the agents at the TVA. You get the impression that they're a little sick of all these Lokis taking steps off the sacred timeline, but that's the role of a trickster god. Loki isn't the only person of interest for an authority that should be keeping tabs on in order to keep reality from branching out. At the end, waiting for the heat death of the universe, is the last of the Time Variance agents, He Who Remains. Ideally, he wanted to create 3 entities that would help the next multiverse learn from the mistakes of the last. Only it turns out to be a mistake as the Time Twisters went about erasing reality from the end backwards. Since they were invulnerable to Asgardians, Thor, Jane Foster, and the Warriors 3 jumped ahead to the creation of the Time Twisters to talk to He Who Remains out of this terrible idea. That itself created 2 realities, one where he destroyed the Time Twisters and one where he didn't and instead created the Timekeepers. There's a fourth Timekeeper that was banished to Egypt by He Who Remains. Is that who Lady Loki's trying to draw out? Probably not. That honor most likely goes to Kang the Conqueror. So we're already on board with the idea that in different realities there will be different versions of the same person. If that person also happens to be of the conquering persuasion and prone to getting a hold of dimension-skipping hardware, eventually those very like minds might end up getting together. Just ask Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. Kang beat the Ricks to the Council game, forming a Council of Kangs. Just like the Council of Ricks, the Council of Kangs was actually just an elaborate trick for the Kangest of all Kangs to eliminate competing Kangs and secure his role as a Mortis. At the gooey center of the House of M event, of course, was one very distraught Wanda Maximoff. As we see in the MCU, the more distraught she gets, the more powerful she gets. But what's going on with all that power? Well, in the comics, Wanda is a Nexus being. That's a being who has the power to shape their reality to their liking, which is what allowed her to take the Westview show worldwide for House of M. If the Time Variance Authority has their eye on the Lokis, the Scarlet Witch has to be high on that list too. Unless by being a Nexus being means that whatever she does is inherently what's supposed to happen. Spider-Man is more than just someone who can do what a spider can. He's actually a spider totem, another one of those beings that every reality gets. Naturally, if there's a being that's guaranteed to be in every reality, someone is going to act like they're Pokemon and see if they can catch them all. For the spider totems, that's Morlun, who goes about trying to kill the spider totems in each reality. This makes Spider-Man an important part of the MCU reality, since he's the spider totem for that reality. Maybe Lady Loki is successful in destroying the TVA, opening the door for Morlun and shattering the Spider-Verse in Far From Home. You might not think that the Man-Thing and Captain Britain have anything in common, but they do. Kinda. It turns out that the TVA aren't the only ones with their eyes on the multiverse. Captain Britain is part of the Captain Britain Corps. They're organized at the Starlight Citadel by Rona to fix the multiversal problems. Meanwhile, at the Nexus of all realities stands the shambling mound of eldritch horror, Man-Thing. The Nexus of all realities is a weak point between all realities that happens to be in Florida. Because, of course it is. A grieving orphan with reality-skirting powers is scary. Imagine those powers in a small child. Franklin Richards is the offspring of Reed and Sue Richards, able to warp reality. Oh, and eventually, maybe at some point down the family tree is Kang the Conqueror. Franklin Richards would definitely be someone they want to keep an eye on. Really though, I'm keeping my eye on Miss Minutes. Is she just a mascot? A recording? An AI? What's up with that little clocked face apparition anyways? I bet she gets a lot of grief if she's ever late. Her face is a clock.